YouTube, this is Boxhead. Now, some of you might be wondering, what am I doing? I'm reviewing games. That seems to be a pretty popular thing to do. I'm just doing it because I want to. However, unlike people like the angry video game nerd who reviews really old, really crappy games, and the irate gamer who has Irate Gamer Neo, which reviews really new, really crappy games, I review both old and new games that are good. I will suggest these games to you. Okay? Okay. Now, some of you might be wondering, why is this box on my head? Well, it's a long story, but I played Metal Gear Solid 2. Metal Gear Solid 2 was one of the best games I've played. See the orange? That's a specific Metal Gear Solid 2 reference. See the eye holes? Also Metal Gear series reference. Now, some of you might be wondering, what kind of games will I be reviewing? Pretty much anything I can get my hands on. For instance, later on in the series, I'll be rating games like Metroid Prime, Tales of the Abyss, and, well, Pokemon. Yeah. Well, since we've got our introduction out of the way, let's move on to our first game. Alright YouTube, this is our very first game, Katamari Damacy for the PlayStation 2. Now the first thing guy rolling around a giant ball. See? Rolly roll. That guy is the Prince of the Cosmos, believe it or not. Let's choose our first game, which is my best. Now, in the title sequence, rather the beginning theme, you'll notice that guy. That guy is the king of all cosmos. His purpose, if he even has a purpose, is to give you something to do. The game would not have been him. Now the premise of the game is the king of all cosmos has destroyed the stars, and it's your job to help him remake them. As you do this, you'll go around collecting various things, like those giant mushrooms for instance. Note that the giant mushrooms are important. Not to the game, but to the game makers. I'll explain later. For now, let's get to the game. One of the first things you'll notice, besides the prince and the king, is the weird way the game is set up. The game requires you to use both left and right analog sticks to move. Why this? Well, because you have several different directions you can be going in. Now, let's start where all good games start. Level 1. This is the very last level. We won't go there yet. You'll notice that the king talks in record scratch. Yeah, like that sound you make when you interrupt a disc when it's playing. Not one of the new discs, one of those really old vinyl discs, like the kind that DJs use. Some of you might be wondering what a Katamari is. See the big ball? The ball that's almost as big as the prince? That's a Katamari. Katamaris are giant sticky balls. Yes, I said it. Giant sticky balls. Katamari's purpose is to roll up stuff. Like I'm doing right now. Now, Katamari isn't really a new game, but it's not old either. It was made in the 2000s, early 2000s, and, well, even though good graphics were available, they decided to use this weird little system of geometric shapes. The prince's head is a cylinder, his body is a cut-off cone, and, well, everything you'll see are just geometric shapes. Like this eye drops, for instance. It's basically just a pentagon with a distorted trapezoid on top of it. This cookie, well, sort of an octagon, I guess. Several things in this game are based on the geometric shape of a rectangle. They come in many forms, and, well, the more you pick up, the bigger the Katamari gets. And the way the game works, the bigger the Katamari gets, the bigger things you can pick up. Notice that I just picked up a lipstick, which I couldn't at first. I banged into it, and got sent back a little bit. Now, living things in this game are really strange. If you can see closely, you can see the mouse in the background, and it's moving in a very, well, simple form. Let's try and roll one up. I can't yet, but it did shake, which means that I can get it soon. Now that I've completed the first, we'll stop and see what happens when you finish the level. This is the start screen, where you can choose O to go back to your home planet, one really tiny world we saw at first, or press start once more to replay the game. For now, let's go back to the home planet, and I'll touch on that a bit. This is the star completion screen, which tells you how big the Katamari was when you finished it, and how much of anything you collected. For me, it was snacks, cookies, caramels, that kind of stuff. It also shows you the time you took to finish it. For me, it was 1 minute 57 seconds. Now, while the first goal is actually very short, the last goal is 22 minutes long, if I recall correctly. That is Stardust. When you replay a level but don't want to erase the star you made before it, you can create Stardust. For now, let's ignore Make the Moon. I mean, yeah, it's the most exciting since it's the last level, but it takes way too long to finish. Like, it will take you all of the 22 minutes to get it as big as possible. If you have good eyes, you could notice at the very first that I have a record of 744 meters, give or take a few. That is actually rather big. The biggest I've ever seen a Katamari get was 1,028 meters, and that takes skill. Now, in this video, you might get a little bored just watching it, but when you play it, it becomes highly addictive. Well, let's end the game for now. Well, first, let's talk about the Space Mushroom. The Space Mushroom is multiplayer mode. As you can see, I have all these little guys just walking around. There's the prince right there with the headphones on. And, well, the way you obtain all the different little guys is to play through the game, and more will show up. These are royal presents. There's one in each level, including the constellations. You can change the way the prince looks to create a unique prince. And, well, once you choose your royal present to wear, he walks around with it on. During levels, this adds a different factor to it. They don't do anything specific, but it does look cool. Constellations are the stars that you make, the constellations that you finish, and the moon. It also gives you choices to go to Earth or the Space Mushroom, which is somewhere else on the screen. When you press certain buttons, like down and O for me, it creates shooting stars. If you finish, there are actually 2 time limits to each level. The first time limit usually takes you 2 or 3 run-throughs to get. If you finish the quickest, when you finish the quickest time limit, you get a shooting star. You have a shooting star for each level besides Make the Moon. That's a total of 8 different shooting stars. You'll notice pretty quickly that there's not a whole lot to do on the home planet besides save and view the constellations and all the different stuff you've collected. But after you start filling it up, it can be really interesting to look at all the different stuff.